I think that the whistleblower gave a lot of false information, and you have to see who the whistleblower is. Once I released the transcript, which was almost immediately, the whistleblower's report was very wrong. Because, as you know, the whistleblower covered mostly my transcript, my call with the president of Ukraine. So once I released that call, I released a very detailed version of that call. All of a sudden, the whistleblower's report was incorrect, and the whistleblower seems to have disappeared. And I also wonder what happened to the second whistleblower and what happened to the informant.
The president has targeted some of the folks who have testified, including Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. He has called for unmasking the name or revealing the identity of the whistleblower, which is protected by the law. How much do you take this seriously, and how much do you think it's actually a sort of concrete threat to these proceedings?
So we know that the whistleblower's identity is no longer relevant because everything he said has now been corroborated by other witnesses. And the White House has released their call transcript, the summarized version of it. We don't need to have the whistleblower tell us what was on that phone call because the American people already know. In addition, President Trump's attacks on Lieutenant Colonel Vindman are very unfortunate. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman served in Iraq. He shed his blood. He got a Purple Heart. He is an American hero, and he told his story to Congress. He should not be attacked.
So there's a lot of very important things going on here from the Democrat side with this whole impeachment effort. I want to just walk you through a little bit of it. Yeah, I can never remember the Ambassador Yovanovitch, I think is the way I'm supposed to say it, right? Ambassador Yovanovitch. There were no bombshells. She gave the usual, I'm a sort of State Department, longtime bureaucrat. Here's what I think, blah, blah. They shouldn't have fired me. And maybe they shouldn't have. I can't, the administration, if they have any evidence or real proof that she was working against Trump, we should see that at some point. We have not seen that yet. But I would note that this desire to protect the whistleblower's identity at all costs. Hold on a second. Why can't the whistleblower testify behind closed doors? Oh, because Republicans in Congress can't be trusted with the identity. Now, keep in mind, there's already reports circling all over the place about the name of somebody who is reportedly a CIA analyst who was detailed to the NSC, who is the person behind this. I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know. The name is swirling around. But until we have confirmation of this from the government, we don't really know what we're dealing with. But let's understand also what the precedent here would be. A person working for the federal government going forward, any person working for the federal government could, upon learning of any meeting the president has, including a highly classified discussion that the president has, file a complaint through allies in Congress and then use that complaint as the basis for a make-it-up-as-you-go-along impeachment inquiry that's an entirely political exercise, and that is meant to defame the president while in office and also perhaps even set the stage for not just a Senate trial, but removal from office of the President of the United States, thwarting the will of the American people as evidenced in the 2016 election and showing us that the deep state really runs things. That's the precedent that would be set here. Think about this. Why did we have all these hearings about Benghazi, for example, with the Obama administration, when what they really should have done, apparently, is have one person from within there were plenty of them, by the way. I've spoken to people who were involved in Benghazi who would have loved the opportunity to talk about the terrible malfeasance by the Hillary Clinton State Department, the lack of action by the White House under President Obama during the 13 hours, I believe it was, of that assault and gun battle. But instead of just having hearings where we could find out what happened, and hearings the American people were allowed to see, I suppose they should have just had one person who really didn't like President Obama go meet with Republicans in the Congress and say that Obama was guilty of dereliction of duty. Oh, but that person's a whistleblower, see? So nobody can know who it is, what their politics are, what their motivations may be. Keep that identity secret. Then convene a congressional a congressional group like the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that just goes and subpoenas every Obama administration official they want to, threatens to hold people in contempt, doesn't allow Democrats. I mean, that's what could have happened I suppose if Republicans were willing to just go scorched earth and just play really dirty. I mean, the Democrats are playing dirty here. That's what this is. You'll notice that now they're saying, well, we know what's in the transcript, so we don't need to hear from the whistleblower more. Well, then, why did we hear from the whistleblower in the first place? Whistleblower wasn't even there when the call was had. And there was supposed to be a second witness. Where's that second witness? And what is that witness really going to tell us? These are all the questions we're not supposed to get answers to anymore. We're supposed to just believe Ted Lieu and Adam Schiff and various other Democrat hyperpartisans who represent incredibly blue districts, and all they have to do to get reelected, and they know it, is constantly prove their Trump hatred. That's all they have to do. That's all that has to happen. So that makes it a pretty straightforward proposition for them. I've been telling you this. I'm seeing others have been catching on. And I would be writing some articles about this, but I'm writing the book. The book's coming along. I'm in a chapter right now about College for All. I'm going to be writing about modern monetary theory soon. I'm just, the Buckster is a little overworked and underslept lately, so I'm trying. But this show is obviously priority number one, so this show will always be awesome. But I can't write as much for the Hill and other places as I have been in the past because I got to write the book. That all said, my defense of the basic right, just a right of fairness, never mind just a right of law, to confront your accusers, where is the willingness to stand up for this? There's a reason why that's not something that's just kind of thrown in there at the very end. No, this goes back to English common law. If someone is going to accuse you of a serious crime, you should have the right, or your lawyers, your defense team, the people that are representing your side of the story should have the right to question that individual's story and, yes, character and trustworthiness and all the rest of it. That's an essential component of justice. Otherwise, people have, first of all, it's much less likely that we'll get to the truth of an accusation. And also, think about the incentive then to just lob bombs at somebody from safe quarters and know that you're never going to receive incoming yourself. You're just going to be able to say whatever you want about a person, and you can lie about it as you see fit. That's a problem, folks. That's a problem. And that's what they're doing right now to President Trump. It's disgusting. And yet the media seems to have no problem with this whatsoever. The process is whatever the Democrats say it is, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that we have to say the process is okay. It also goes to show you that there's nothing fair-minded about any of this. Right? If the Democrats were serious, if they had a real case, wouldn't they make more of a show of, sure, Republicans can cross-examine. Sure, Republicans are going to get an equal say in how these hearings are conducted. They're going to be able to ask questions of witnesses, all these things. No, they're not going to do any of that. They have to cheat. They have to stack the deck in their favor because they don't have a strong case, and they know it. And they also have to protect the identity of the whistleblower because if we found out who this person was for sure, I think we already kind of know. And if it's the person that's being reported as the whistleblower, then yeah, it's a Democrat hack partisan working inside the intelligence community who saw an opportunity here to work with his buddies and defend Joe Biden in the process, to work with Adam Schiff and the Democrats and try to take down a president that he obviously hates in a way that only the same shrill lunatics who basically cry, even though they're adults, when a baseball player puts on a MAGA hat. That same mentality, those same individuals, yeah, they do work for the federal government sometimes. The kind of people who would boo the commander-in-chief the same day or within 24 hours of a raid the commander-in-chief ordered to take out Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to boo him, those same lunatics work for the federal government. A lot of them. Not a few of them, mostly. The federal government is full of Trump haters because people who go to work for the federal Leviathan, who want jobs where the minimum is all that is ever expected or required of you and where you cannot be fired and where all you do, and I know this because I was one, is complain about how underpaid you are when in fact you're overpaid. That's going to be a place where you find a lot of Democrats, a lot of leftists. And so it's unsurprising that some of them come forward and try to take out the president of the United States politically in this way, which reminds me also of the Anonymous book. This is going to be interesting. You remember the anonymous op-ed writer who claimed that the steady state was doing everything possible to try and stop the president from getting his way. Oh, we must stop President Trump from being able to do what he wants to do as president because he's so crazy. And so we pull papers away from him, the steady state, really deep state, anonymous op-ed author said. We frustrate his will for the benefit of the American people. And then they make fun of us when we say, so there is a deep state, right? We understand this? Because that's what this person is describing, what this person is laying out for us is the deep state. It's what it is. But they don't like to think of it that way. They don't like to hear about it in those terms. Isn't that interesting? So this person is coming out with a book, I believe it hits mid-November. And the book will be, I'm sure, one large collection of look at how crazy and stupid Trump is behind closed doors. P.S. Vote Democrat, the end. That's what the book will be. How can we judge the authenticity of the author? How can we judge their motivations, their truthfulness, when we don't know who the person is? Democrats are normalizing cowardice in a way that's fascinating to watch. Oh, we can have a whistleblower, but the whistleblower can't come forward. Really? We have men and women in uniform across the country and around the world risking their lives every day out of love for this country. You're going to tell me this whistleblower is such a patriot? Can't take the heat of being on the speaker's tour, getting paid $100,000 a speech. Look at Comey. Oh, yeah, he's suffered a terrible amount for his opposition to the president. If by suffering you mean getting a book deal, being on TV all the time, getting paid to give speeches all over the country about how awful Trump is, there's no bravery here. This whistleblower's not brave. And there's no bravery in writing this anonymous book, which we're told the person's going to give some degree of the money, I think, to charity or something. And that's until they decide to come forward, and then they start collecting the big paychecks for giving the anti-Trump speeches as the author of Anonymous all across the country. This is appalling. Why can't this person come forward? I think it's because we would recognize that, one, he or she is not nearly, I believe it's a he is not nearly as senior as he would want us to believe, and two, we'd probably find out that this person has a background just like the whistleblower reportedly of Democrat support and anti-Trumpism. So this would be like, I could go back to work for the federal government, and the next time we have a, heaven forbid, but we might have a Biden or a Warren or a Buttigieg administration, all of a sudden I'm a whistleblower, and people say, wait a second, this guy's been a Republican, he's been a right-winger his whole life. Maybe his opinion on this isn't just so objective. Well, of course it's not objective. It's the opinion of somebody that is opposed to the administration. That's exactly what we have here. The issue with the anonymous book right now, is that they are going to look into, the Justice Department is looking into whether or not there was a binding non-disclosure agreement signed here, especially if the person had access to classified information. You're going to see a lot of people that I think are going to have trouble here. If this person was senior and had access to classified information, which is you would have to be if you're senior enough in this White House, there is a review process for writing a book of this nature about your work. It does not matter if you think you are a patriot. It does not matter if you think that you are saving the democracy or the republic or whatever they're calling it today. You have a legal obligation to submit that for review. And I am pretty sure, although I can't speak to it quite yet, we'll have to find out what the final facts are. I'm quite sure that this person did not submit this for review, and so therefore would be in violation of their secrecy agreement. Now, violation of the secrecy agreement itself without spilling classified information is punishable only by seizure of the profits of the book. And so the profits of the book that are going to go to charity, I'm not sure the White House would care to seize those, assuming that it's really just going to charity. But then there's the issue of, well, if you're going to have a court proceeding here, guess what? You have to find out who, in fact, is the author of this book. Hachette, however you say it. Hachette, I think. It's one of the fancy publishers. Hachette is saying that they have no legal obligation to the federal government, so they're not going to. Yeah, but they have a legal obligation to a federal judge who may say, guess what? We have to know who this author is because we have to know if they signed a classified NDA. This is the process we have. This is the way the law works. Get ready for it now, because if the White House pursues this fight, you will see people who are alleged legal experts going on TV pretending that this is not very straightforward when it is. The federal government has a legitimate interest in preventing the disclosure of classified and sensitive information. If you go work for the federal government, you sign something, a contract that is legally binding, that says that for books about your work in the government, you will submit them for pre-publication review. If you are unwilling to do that, you are in breach of contract to the federal government. How can we know if this person is in breach of contract to the federal government or not if we don't know who the person is? Oh, there we go. That's when a federal judge gets to say, who is this person? Federal judges deal with classified all the time. They can deal with this in closed proceedings. But we get to know, or rather, the federal government gets to know. Just remember that now, because I think you're going to see a lot of people say, oh, but the First Amendment and whatever, Trump is bad. And you're going to hear people, legal experts, go on TV, make jackasses of themselves. Because anything for hashtag resistance. We should probably, some of these predictions, we should mark them down, because I'm always right. And I mean, it's fun to always be right. I mean, sometimes producer Mark is like, you're occasionally wrong. And I have to tell him, see, this is where you're wrong, producer Mark. But I'm basically always right. And this is one where, assuming they pursue this, you will see people making arguments that are completely ridiculous on TV about how that there's no legal basis to find out who the author of this book is. There absolutely is a federal government basis to find out who the author of this book is. And they're going to try to hide this from us too. Why? The person is not as senior as they pretend to be in the op-ed, doesn't have the access that they're letting people believe that he or she, I believe, we'll see, he does, and probably has a history of being kind of a, if not a wishy-washy Republican, a straight-up stealth Democrat. We'll see.
But one of the reasons we wanted Mr. Eisenberg to come in is to find out what his role was, what the role of others was, and why a transcript that plainly did not belong in a classified system that is meant for some of the most secret of intelligence activities, that is, covert action activities. Why would a call record that the president would have the country believe was perfect, why would it be hidden in this classified system? So clearly the White House does not want him to testify. They do not want the American people to know why Mr. Eisenberg or others made that decision. And I think we can infer that the reason they don't want the public to hear from Mr. Eisenberg is that it would tend to corroborate allegations against the president.
Anything where Adam Schiff says you should infer, you probably want to do the opposite because he's lying to you. Think about the way that this is being constructed. Why would the transcript of the Zelensky-Trump phone call be removed to a classified server? Why would that happen? First of all, any conversation between the president and another head of state is going to be considered sensitive and classified. Okay, so start with that. But why would it be removed specifically to a server where it would be even more secure? Oh, you mean why would they try to prevent the leak of a conversation between the president and a counterpart that was basically leaked? that as soon as possible there was this effort to try to get it out into public view. Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe because they understood that the second there was an opening for people who hated the president to try to take this and turn it into something that it wasn't, they would do it. But Shifty Schiff never stops being shifty. Welcome back, team. Let's talk about how journalism, big journos, how do they really do what they do? How does this business work? This business of informing the public, but also shaping perception, of fitting propaganda in certain ways so that it is more easily disseminated, making sure that narratives take hold in the public mind that are in line with what the activist intentions of most journalisms actually are. Right? That's all part of it. How do they do it? And how do we have evidence, or do we have evidence of them doing it? Project Veritas strikes again. And I've got to tell you, this is a pretty interesting one. You may have seen the memes out there now. There's a lot of them. Some of them are pretty funny about how it has become a cultural phenomenon right now to just blurt out or write in an unexpected place that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. This is a meme now. This is a thing that's happening. You'll see this in different places, and people will try to find more and more creative ways to put this out there. Here, I'll give a shout out to Michael Knowles over at the Daily Wire. He had one today that was particularly funny. It was, on this day 608 years ago, Khalil Sultan, the Timurid ruler of Transoxania, died at the age of 27. Shortly thereafter, his wife committed suicide, which distinguishes her from Jeffrey Epstein, who did not kill himself. That's the kind of stuff that you are seeing these days. That's the memes, the meme creation. Because there are a lot of people who are looking at the Epstein case and are saying, well, hold on a minute here. Hold on a second. Why is it that Dr. Bodden, who was paid by Epstein's brother to look into this, but I don't believe that he would light his credibility on fire for no reason, who's involved in some of the highest level autopsies of any, or in terms of the cases that he's dealt with of anyone, why would he say it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that he's never seen in, I think it was 40 years of medical examination and autopsy, the circumstances that Epstein died under and that being a suicide. So we're supposed to believe that the highest, let's just add up the coincidences here. The highest profile prisoner at the time in the United States Bureau of Prisons custody was able to commit suicide weeks after an alleged other suicide attempt. He was able to commit suicide with 2 guards falling asleep while he was committing suicide, 2 guards, with cameras malfunctioning near the cells, and the medical report shows breakages around his throat that are more consistent with being strangled than killing one's self. There's a lot of... Oh, and he was the first prisoner, I believe, in the history of the Manhattan Correctional Facility to commit suicide when held in similar circumstances, in a cell that was specifically designed to prevent suicide. And, oh, by the way, Dr. Bodden hasn't seen this in 40 years of examining dead bodies in homicide situations. Look, that's all possible. Crazy stuff happens. It's a lot, though, right? Am I missing something? That's a lot of coincidences. It's a lot of coincidences. But let's put that aside for a moment. So I don't plan on just sitting here on the show and yelling Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself at random, although I know people will be doing that on their shows, because I'm not sure. I think that it's still very much an open question what happened to Epstein. But here's what I don't think is an open question, and this brings me back to, or rather, here's what I am certain of, and this brings me back to Project Veritas. There's a lot about Epstein that is being suppressed still, actively suppressed by people who were around Epstein, knew what was going on, and there was a conspiracy of silence that ran all the way through the media because of the people that Epstein was involved with, and that there was pressure brought to bear to shut these stories down. No question about that. And that there are people right now who pretend to be brave, who pretend to be the journos out there who are doing the hard work of speaking truth to power. I do not know many journos at all who speak truth to power. I know a lot of journos who do power's bidding, who do what they think their audience wants to see and what their paymasters in the executive suite want to see and what their peer group in the elite echelon of opinion and tastemakers in American media want to see. That's what they report on. And if it fits into those categories, that's what they'll do. But if it's going to rock the boat too much, they'll sell out their audience, usually, journos, long before they'll sell out the executives who sign their paychecks or the people that they socialize with after hours. And we've seen this with Harvey Weinstein, with Matt Lauer, with numerous high-level cases of people who were serial abusers of women at organizations that give a lot of lip service to being all about women's empowerment and feminists, and it turned out that, no, they were much more concerned with powerful people, their relationships, and the bottom line, their financial interests. That then brings me to this Project Veritas video about Jeffrey Epstein's case and what Amy Robach, who is an ABC News anchor, I'm always amazed that there are still millions of people who watch ABC, many more than watch cable news, by the way. ABC News has a much bigger audience for its one news show than any cable news show does. I just can't imagine watching this watered-down, worthless news broadcast that it's not really opinion, it's not really news, it's just kind of like, I don't know. To me, it's like CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. These are old models that I'm amazed they still have any audience at all. But put that aside for a moment here. So I don't even know who Amy Robach was, but I'm sure she's got millions of people that watch her, even though I work in news and I don't even know who she is. But there's an important reality to keep in mind, and that is, and producer Mark has to remind me of this sometimes, when I'm in the Freedom Hut and the language is getting a little salty, which is that when you have microphones and cameras around you, yeah, if you're not on air, you can let it loose a little bit sometimes, and there's a different presentation that we all have when we are presenting in front of an audience versus when we're just talking off mic. But you got to always assume that maybe it's being recorded, and maybe it will, for those who don't remember, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. One of the greatest moments, I really think one of the greatest moments in TV history. It's amazing. And I like Bill O'Reilly. I think he's a great TV talent. It's just one of the funniest things. It's just one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's just really funny. So no disrespect meant to the big man. I just think that clip is pretty hilarious. But you got to always remember that people are recording these things, and there's the possibility that it will leak. And this one did. Amy Robach was talking kind of off mic, or rather not thinking this would air, about how, let's just let her, this is about the Epstein case. Here is what a big-time ABC News anchor had to say when she didn't think people were listening. Play it.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Now, the good news for Amy Robach is that she actually comes out of this looking pretty good. The people who don't look good are the executives at ABC, and she just ran down all the stuff here. And this is why, when I've been saying that there was a conspiracy of silence around Epstein, of course there was. They're very powerful people. Very powerful Democrats, by the way. You'll notice Dershowitz, Clinton, the royal family in the UK, which they're not Democrats, but what the heck is going on there? Who is Epstein? Well, that's why you break a major national news story and you tell people who Epstein is, right? Here's what's clear about this. And you constantly see this happening in major newsrooms. You saw this with NBC, with Matt Lauer. By the way, they haven't brought in an independent investigator yet to look at what was really happening at NBC News with Matt Lauer, who had the sketchy button installed under his desk for security reasons. I love this. Like, we're all a bunch of morons. Yeah, sure. Because that was going to save him if somebody came into the office to harm him. He has a button on his desk he could hit to lock the door. We know what that button was all about, all right? And we know that they know that it was installed in his office. And I have been hearing shady rumors about Matt Lauer, and I'm just a little dude in media that no one even pays attention to in the mainstream. I had known stuff about him for years. I mean, heard rumors, I should say. And the rumors turned out to be true. I didn't know the names and stuff, but I knew that he was doing stuff with young women while he's a married guy at his place and people who work for him. They won't bring in an independent investigator because they'll find out is that the NBC executives, some of them knew about it and didn't do anything about it. I'd also like to know what years was Jeff Zucker a senior executive at NBC? Because I'm pretty sure Matt Lauer was there when Jeff Zucker was there at the same time. I just think that would be an interesting thing for someone to look into. What a surprise. But they didn't do what they should have done. They weren't acting ethically because of the money involved and because of the powerful relationships involved. And for ABC News to, I mean, does anyone think for a second that what Robach says here is untrue? That when you look at the pressure of the royal family saying that no Kate and Will interviews, by the way, Americans, I beg you, all right? I love my fellow Americans more than any people in the world. Stop giving a crap about the royal family. It's worthless. It doesn't matter. It's weird, okay? We need to not, I don't mean like the Bilderbergs and, the Illuminati and the Queen of England. Forget about all that stuff. I just mean, what is this? Why do we care? It's not a fairy tale. It's kind of weird. We are we fought a war about not having to deal with monarchy. I don't really want the monarchy to invade our space because of media, all right? I think the monarchy thing is bizarre. I think they're a bunch of entitled brats. I don't get it. And I'd say that about any country. Although we only seem to have this fascination with the British royal family. Like, does anyone even know there's a Danish? I think there's a Danish king. There's a Swedish king. These places all have, but they're like socialist kings now. You know what I mean? They show up. Their palaces have lots of IKEA furniture. It's a little bit of a different vibe. But Kate and Will, they're going to deny access to the royal family, and the royal family, I'm sure, threatened to sue. Look, I mean, I'm a guy, okay? I've seen a lot of photos of a lot of people, and if you're a guy, you've spent enough time on social media, you always can kind of tell when someone's holding your girlfriend a little too close, or somebody's trying to. And I'm just going to say it. You see that photo that Prince Andrew has with one of the victims, when she was a very young girl, I think 15 or 16 at the time. I mean, he's holding her away where if that were my daughter, I would lose my mind. That old British dude. I mean, because you look at the photo, there's something sketchy going on. So they had this stuff. There was proof. ABC had evidence. Robach is saying we had the girl. She's going to come forward. She had photos. She had everything. She had names. Manifests of flights would have proven that these guys were flying. They didn't want to run with this story? This is an incredible story. They still haven't figured out how this guy made all of his money, by the way. They still haven't really, everyone's reporting on Epstein. I mean, now I started to get into this Epstein zone where I lose my mind. Everyone reports on Epstein about how he had surveillance equipment and it was all set up so that he could blackmail people. Who was he blackmailing? No names? No names. We have no one has been accused, or rather, no one has been brought into this because of the blackmail that Epstein was supposedly preparing to use or using against them. No one has been indicted who was an Epstein enabler or somebody else that Epstein was inflicting upon these young girls. No charges. Now, the statutes on that stuff would be very lengthy. I mean, I'd have to look at the specifics, but I mean, trafficking in underage girls, I think the statute, you're looking at, there might not be any statute of limitations. Depends on whether they're talking about state or federal. So, no charge, nothing. Really? Epstein's dead, case closed. That's what we're supposed to accept from this? When you have ABC News making it quite clear that the ABC News brass was like, nope, not touching this. And my friends, these are people, they're all incredibly well paid. We're talking about millionaires with tremendous connections. But unfortunately, a lot of the people who are in that category in this country in the media are cowards. They really, and this will sound like a cliche, they want to be invited to the fancy parties in the Hamptons. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to be considered among the elite. They want to be welcome at parties. They're not looking to speak truth to power. They just want to be near power. They're sycophants. They're not patriots. They're not truth tellers. And ABC News just showed us exactly, or rather, Robach is telling us exactly what ABC News is all about. Young girls are being trafficked and violated by this Epstein maniac. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. Rich, multimillionaire, media celebrities knew about this. Executives knew about this. Didn't do anything. hope you're all enjoying the Buck Sexton Show today. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you want to watch on Pluto TV, channel 248, right, Producer Mark? That's how you like to watch on the Pluto TV.
Yes, all day on my television at home is Buck Sexton and Jesse Kelly.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's just got Buck Sexton. He's responsible for just upping our numbers over here. But check out Pluto TV app if you haven't already. Download it, watch it wherever you want on your phone. So easy. It's a great way to check out what's going on in the Freedom Hunter and the Jesse Kelly world. So thank you very much for that.